Well, we're gonna have different people every week.
Okay.
So each week it's going to be a different perspective. And there's two hosts and so two guests. And I just think it makes a little bit more of a complete podcast when we can do it in these stages. So, you know,
Okay.
uh,
That makes sense.
you folks are from Never Alone Recovery. And let's see, who do I have next week? Or not next week, but in 2 weeks from now, I forget. I think it might be Life Recovery. And I also participate in a Recover Out Loud group. And, basically, uh, you know, we don't want people with conflicting stories on the same show.
No
You know,
knockdown dragouts. Okay.
yeah,
Got
yeah.
that.
So,
I'll try not to be too contentious.
all right, but we are recording. My name is Jeff, and my co-host Selena just joined us, and we're here with Lynda and Keithan. And basically, we're talking about recovery, and I'm going to hand it over to my co-host and see if she has any questions or would like to get things started.
Hello, Chef. Good afternoon over there. Hello, Linda. Hello, Keithan. Keithan, right? Hello,
Yes,
it's
Keithan.
wonderful to have you here. I was a little bit late, I guess, because I was struggling with connecting, but it's fine now. So I would love to introduce myself briefly. I'm Selena. I'm based in Belgium. I am a certified hypnotherapist and I practice RTT from Marisa Peer. And the goal of RTT is I'll make it very, very short. So as it is related to Jeff's 12 steps of recovery, it is it is all about recreating or redefining our trauma. So we all have trauma. When we have addiction, the cause majority of the causes of the addiction is childhood trauma. So maybe we have a different experience, but it all boiled down to one common cause. So that's that's what I do. So I will give you back to Chef. Thank you, Chef.
Thanks, Selena. Yeah, Selena, she helped me. I was struggling badly with bipolar disorder and PTSD, basically reoccurring anger issues. And we met on Facebook, and basically she helped me by creating some custom recordings to help me, come to terms with my anger issues. And it was a big change in my awareness. I went from waking up angry every day to waking up peaceful and occasionally experiencing anger, but learning how to process it in a healthy way. So her her device is called rapid transformation therapy, and it's a form of hypnotherapy. And it worked because I was ready for it, because I really wanted some relief. And her guided meditations helped me, become way more peaceful than I was a year ago. So anyway, as I said, we're here with Keithan and Lynda, and we'd love to get to know you guys. Do you guys have a preference who would like to start?
Age before
Then
beauty. I'll go first. That's what I meant when I said that, Keith. Because I'm the old person in the group. I'm the old person in the Never Alone Recovery group too. I'll be 80 my next birthday.
Wow, you don't look that.
Bless your heart. I let the hair go
Age
gray.
is
I
just a
don't do
number.
no
If you
plastic
feel
surgery,
good,
no nothing.
you
This
look
is me.
good. Wow, Linda.
Lots of life
Amazing.
experience.
Yeah.
I grew up in a home where alcohol was always present and part of daily life, but I never used it. I never tried it. My big thing was, oh, I'm going to smoke a cigarette and not let my mom know. So I got hooked on those quite young. Um, but I didn't start drinking until I left home and joined the Marine Corps when I was 18. And this was during the Vietnam War for, you know, to put you in the era that was in. And the only thing to do on a military base is go to one of the clubs because it's cheap beer and you don't have to drive anywhere or you find a bus or whatever. So I started drinking beer and playing poker with guys because they thought I couldn't take their money. So my dad taught me to play poker when I was 7. So I didn't really start using anything until I was 18, but it spiraled quickly. The only time I didn't use for the next 20 years was when I was pregnant, which I was twice. So it was just part of life. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I speak of an experience when I was a teenager. My dad came home. He was a bartender, so he never got home before we were in bed. You know, he came home in the middle of the night. Well, I had gotten up and was getting ready to go to school, and he came home very early in the morning. And I said, "Well, Dad, how come you're so late getting home?" And he said, "Oh, well, your mom's in jail." "Oh, really? What did she do?" And he said, "Well, we got pulled over because I let her drive, and she was erratic driving, and she mouthed off to the cop, and he just took her to the drunk tank." He just acted like, you know, "It's okay. I'll go get her later when she sobers up." Oh, okay. That was what I dealt with in my life, was this this attitude towards drinking. It was just something that was part of your life. I married a man who also, in his childhood, he idolized his older brother, who was only, you know, less than 2 years older than him. And they went everywhere together, and he drank with his older brother's buddies. So he drank all the time too. I was a functioning drunk, and I think that takes longer. I've never been thrown in jail. I've never been arrested for drunk driving. Never had any of those bottoms brought up to me, if you will. So when you're a functioning alcoholic, you justify and rationalize, "I go to work every day, I take care of my kids, I take care of my home, I do the shopping, you know, you just, I'm fine. I'm fine." It wasn't until our teenage son, who was 14 at the time, he did start using when he was 11, but he was 14 when we finally took him to a treatment center. And at that time, there was only one in the Pacific Northwest. It was a 4-hour drive from our home that would take teenagers. All the treatment facilities, rehabs, were for adults. So we took him over there, and of course we went to all the family sessions every weekend and learned a lot, disagreed with a lot of what we were told. You know, if he's using in your home, you should set boundaries and have him leave. And oh no, I could never do that. And 2 years later, I did that. So, you know, it was a time of discovery. But I was the mom of an addict, a young addict, and I just wanted to control and make it better. But about 2 years later, we started going, once he got out of treatment, which was only 30 days, he came home and he started going to NA meetings, and we started attending the Nar-Anon meetings, which, you know, 12 steps, just they use drugs instead of the word alcohol. But I never had a hang up about any of that because I also have an addiction to food. I've had a weight problem all my life. It took me twice to quit smoking. So I have an addictive personality. I will use just about anything if it soothes me, you know, or eases my anxiety or whatever I'm going through. But finally, after about a year and a half, close to 2 years of being in a family program, I figured out that I might have a problem too. So, and that was strictly on my own. I have never been to rehab. I've never been to a treatment center. I started out as the mom of an addict. Luckily, he wanted to share his recovery with me, We read the NA Big Book together at night when he wasn't at a meeting. We talked about recovery. And I did realize that I abused alcohol, and it still took a little time before I actually quit. But I had a kind of a, I don't know, epiphany thing. My father died in 1987, and he was diagnosed about 6 months before that with pancreatic cancer. And back then, they had no cures. They just, pain meds and wish you well. I decided, because he was the first person in my life that I was so close to that was going to die, that I would go through his time sober, because I wanted to experience every feeling. And I knew I would have them. I would be angry. I knew I would be very upset. I adored my father. I was always daddy's girl. All my life, followed him around like a little puppy, you know. And so once he was diagnosed, I quit drinking. And I quit for 5 months until he passed. And we took his body back to Illinois to be buried with family. And in the hotel, before we caught the plane back home the next morning, I had a shot of Jack Daniels. That's just what I did. I was done with that time. And so now I'm going to start drinking again. And I did. But once, several years later, like 4, when I decided I may have a problem with alcohol and I need to quit, I knew I could, because I'd already done a short term before, and I knew I could handle that. Didn't know what it would look like, but I knew I could do it. So with that kind of confidence, which I've never had any of, but I had then, I started taking that seriously. I still didn't go to AA meetings or NA. I did go to the open NA meetings because I could relate to those folks, and they were helping my kid, So, but I worked the 12 steps. I was very diligent. I'm like a dog with a bone. You give me something to work on and I will work on it. I've gone through the 12 steps twice. Second time was totally different from the first, because I was in a different place and I was a different person. But I have not used any mind-altering substances for over 30 years. I used for over 20. I've been in recovery for over 30. I still have an issue with food. I still have issues with other things, but I also have a dear, dear friend who is a life coach, and she helps me because she knows my situation, she knows my family, and she also knows me very, very well. So she helps me. But the 12-step recovery group that I found, because there isn't one here in where I live. I mean, there is one, and I went to it, but I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't relate to them. They're living in their using days. That's all they talk about is, well, when I used, I did this, and I used and I did that. And that's not where I live anymore. I don't live in that world anymore. And so I went for months, several months, but I couldn't deal with those people. So I quit. And then I found Never Alone Recovery on the internet, and it's been a blessing in disguise. It's been about a year and a half since I joined, and it was what was missing from my world, because my world changed a lot in the last few years. I retired 2017, end of 2017. I retired from my job because my husband was diagnosed with dementia, which will probably be leading to Alzheimer's because his father died of that. And I am his sole caregiver. There's no one else here. And so I had to learn a new way of life. And the 12 steps helped me do that. And my doctor, she's very understanding. She gave me a medication to deal with anxiety, so I didn't scream at him when I got so scared, in the early days of his diagnosis and recovery. And so now I meet him where he is. We have a wonderful relationship. He's still the beautiful man that I married 58 years ago. And he loves our life. He tells me every day, I am so grateful that you're my wife. And you take such good care of me. My mama's saving a place for you in heaven, and things like that. So my life is not sad. My life is not restrictive. Um, I have friends. I have outlets. I'm retired, so I get to enjoy what I love the most, which is reading. You can't see it behind me, but this room is full of books. So is my bedroom. So is the garage. So is his TV room. Every place there's books. And I just got through ordering 5 more before I came on here. So I love books. And yes, they take me away from what I'm dealing with, but then they refresh me and redirect me. So that's kind of sort of where I am today. Um, I find that the 12 steps help me live a life. It's not about using anything anymore. It's about what's in my head, that the stinking thinking that really never goes away for an addict or an alcoholic. Um, and so I just, I apply the 12 steps to everything. I do to all relationships. I have ended some relationships that were not good for me. Um, and I, I'm conflicted about that because they were friends for many, many years and even family. But I'm learning to forgive myself for doing that kind of stuff. Anyway, I'm probably rambling because in Oregon, it's only 10 o'clock in the morning and this is only my second cup of coffee. So I'm going to hush up and let somebody else talk. But I am grateful to be here. Thank you, Jeff, for thinking of me. I do appreciate it.
Of course, very well spoken. It's always nice to hear you share. You made some really important points, and again, you shared your history and also some of your recovery tools. So that's really, what we're looking for on this podcast. And one point I wanted to make with people, I get into arguments with people on Facebook, which I do not enjoy, but it seems to happen often. People don't really understand the nature of trauma. Trauma doesn't necessarily mean that there were horrible, tragic, abusive things that happened. Trauma could just be a lack of balance. And that's one of the things that addicts are notorious for. We focus on just a few areas of wellness, the ones that give us the most gratification. And that lack of balance is traumatizing because then that becomes your behavior patterns. And you can become an addict just living with another addict, just because we fall into these things where it's like, well, every night I'm going to watch TV, every night I'm going to have a beer, every night I'm going to fall asleep at 9 o'clock. Well, those are the patterns of addiction, and they don't include a full rounded lifestyle when there's, these 8 different areas of wellness that we're supposed to give attention to. And many or most people really don't. We kind of focus on a small number of areas of wellness, and that's, it's not necessarily the healthiest way to live. Selena, did you have any comments or any questions you wanted to ask of Lynda?
Yeah, yeah. When it comes to life experience, Lynda, you have made a lot of wonderful experience, and you just said that you're not sad. You live your life and functioning. You are a functioning alcoholic. And yeah, and I can feel that. I do believe it, but I feel something. You are very, very brave woman, very strong. I feel that. But deep within, there is something. I feel there is fear. That's why you are here. Is that correct?
Yes.
There is fear, deep-seated fear, that no matter how functioning you are, no matter how strong you are, you think you are, which you are, I do believe, but there is fear that's why you are here, because you want to really recover, like to get rid of the fear. I don't know what it is because I don't know you much. I just know you from here, from your story. But I feel that there is something in there. You mentioned anxiety,
Oh, yeah.
that there is something deeper. And good that you are here because I do believe Jeff's 12 steps of recovery is really very effective, and you believe that too. And keep doing it because I do believe it. But a little bit different what I do. I go deeper, and I really that's why I said there is fear in there. I could not I could not tell. But by studying or applying the 12 steps of recovery, you are getting there because
Mhm.
you are very, you are very functional. You know what you want, you know what you are doing, but you fear that you will get out of control again. That's what I feel. Is that correct?
Pretty much. There is
Yeah.
a there is a ball of panic within me
Mm-hmm.
because my husband is dying and I don't know how to deal with
Yeah.
it. It's as
And
simple
there
as that.
are things that happens in your past. And although you said, I manage it, and I've I have managed my life very well, but it's not only you. We all have that. And talking to the right group of people, it helps us to recover even effortlessly. And that's great that you are here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Right. And I agree with that. I mean, I believe that's one of the main reasons why we have fellowships is so that we can talk about our fears. It's not like we're gonna be without fear. It's how we process it that really matters, because I know that I'm experience fear every time I go to do one of these podcasts, and I've been on camera a lot in my life. I used to be a mobile disc jockey and did performance for wedding receptions and parties. I've been in front of audiences of thousands of people, and I still get nervous when I go on to, do something like this. So anyway, Keithan, let's hear from you. What would you like to share for us today?
All righty. Well, thanks for the invite, Jeff and Selena. Definitely honored to be here to share a little bit about myself. Always open to do that. So I am, Linda mentioned starting late, and I believe I started early with um, an early introduction to substances, and then indirectly through family members. So I can remember, some of those earlier memories of my uncles who would invite their friends over and would kick me out of their room, and I would stand by the door and put my nose up to the door and smell the marijuana smoke. And then so I was 6, 7 years old when that would take place. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was like that restricted area. I've been removed. I can hang out here all the time, but then there's this time period where this funny smell comes, and then I'm no longer allowed in the room. And so I wanted to know what that was about. And all I would do is just, stand by the door and smell it. But I did love the smell. And later on, I would say my family events where there's drinks, and maybe I took a sip of something, as a curious child at some point. Maybe that happened once or twice. But I know it was the summer of 10, and I believe my traumatic, my the main traumatic experience for me was my parents separating when I was 5. And so I always say life was perfect for me. I had a mother who was very involved. I was reading by 2 years old. I was like the Uno champion of the world, self-proclaimed. I was very much into art. I would speak to everyone, just this bubbling personality. I asked a lot of questions. I shared the information I had, and I was just full of life. We would go often to the beach, and I was the mama's boy, and so I was with my mom. Um, and when that separation came, my dad left, and I remained with my mother. And a couple weeks later, he came back and took me out of the home because she was neglecting. Uh, and I don't know what that looked like. I just know my dad felt that at that time I wasn't getting the proper care. And so the person I love most in life, uh, I'm no longer able to live life with. And again, I'm 5 years old, so I don't understand. And so from there I would spend weekends with my mother, and every Monday or Sunday evening after returning or needing to return back with my dad, um, I remember just crying hysterically every single time. I want my mom. I want to stay with my mom. And so, no one ever talked to me about that. There was no counseling, no therapy, no family huddle to discuss how Keithan feels in these moments that are reoccurring. And so I believe that's where I can trace back to my traumatic experience that then showed up in other areas of my life, including the addiction. And so I'll say it was the summer of when I was 10 years old. So this has been 5 years since the parents separate. And my dad says, it was his efforts uh, that allowed me to still have a relationship with my mother, because by this time she's further off into addiction, and she's doing the best she can to survive the mean streets. Being a parent was not really on the radar. And so my dad made, the attempts to track her down and find where she was living and make sure I could stop by and see her and make sure I could spend a weekend. And so I was 10 years old, and he decided that I should spend the summer with my mother. Now, yes, part of that was probably him needing a break. Although, I was raised in the home with my grandparents, I had the two uncles and my father. My dad probably still needed a break. He was still mid-20s, mid to late 20s. And so let's get this kid with his mom, and I can have this summer to myself. But anyway, I spent that summer with my mother, and I was in I was in the Chicago that you see on the news. That's where I spent that summer. And though I had been born and raised already in Chicago, I was kind of sheltered. And so this summer at 10 years old, I'm in it. I'm in the middle of the chaos on a daily basis from sunup to whenever my eyes close, to regenerate. I'm in the middle of what Chicago offers. And so that brought about an introduction to gang life and drug dealing and gambling and substance use. And I was attracted. I was attracted to all of it. It was the camaraderie and all these gang bangers that wear the same colors and do the same things and hang out, and they cool handshakes. As a 10-year-old, that was the best I can grasp of what I saw taking place, but I was attracted to it. I saw all the money exchanging hands constantly, and just the girls wanting to be with these guys, and the sense of community, and camaraderie, and just I don't know. That was something it was new to me. So I was attracted to that at 10 years old. And that summer, my mother, the person that was supposed to be caring for me that summer, she really wasn't able to. And so I remember she was smoking a joint on the back porch, and I asked her to let me hit it. Don't know where that came from. Uh, and she met that with, "Here you go." And so she passed me a joint, and so I was able to hit the joint for the first time at 10 years old. I'm pretty sure I probably had some stronger alcohol around that time. and there were no plans to continue. There was no, I didn't see that life in my future, although I was attracted to it. But as time went on, it got to the place where, uh, I don't know, I think I was 13 when, again, I'm just a kid, but these things that I saw at 10, I'm moving closer and closer to that being my way of life. So there's the gang affiliation. There's, I'm beginning to get in trouble in school. I go from honor roll student, like the one praised for everything, to being suspended and being, principal trips to the principal's office. And so by 13, I meet a guy who introduces or who gives me an orientation on marijuana. And with this orientation, he showed me all the possible methods of consumption. And so I leave this guy's house. I'm high as a kite. And from that time period on, uh, I attempted to smoke everything that closely resembled marijuana. So from parsley to basil to catnip to oregano, everything that I could get my hands on that could possibly produce that same effect. And again, it just progressed. So from the marijuana, the love of marijuana became a daily thing. Uh, Gambling was also introduced at 10 years old, so that became a daily thing. By high school, I was cutting classes not to go do anything other than gamble. I would gamble in the gym locker room. In one period, I would take an extra lunch break because we played cards in that lunch period. And so my life by my sophomore year in high school was get intoxicated before school, get to school, skip some classes, get intoxicated, somewhere in between school. I would leave school early, go get intoxicated, come home, gamble some more, get intoxicated some more. And that was my life. And it pretty much looked the same from high school until I entered a treatment center when I was 32 years old. The only thing that changed was the people, my age, maybe lived in a different community, so there was a geographical location difference. Um, but the way I lived my life was pretty much the same. I attempted to get intoxicated and stay intoxicated. I only the only plans for the future I had consisted of getting drugs, selling drugs, going to the boat, robbing, lying, stealing, coming up with some way to continue living in this dark place. And so that led me to a place of suicidal. It was a suicidal ideation, but it was like that was really the only out I could see after living my life for so many years on this repeat cycle. That last moment was like, I have nothing else. I can't come up with another plan. I don't have any more bridges to burn. And through tears running down my face, through me praying in that moment of uncertainty and doubt and pain, a friend of mine ended up reaching out and saying, "Hey, maybe you should get some help." And this friend began to call treatment centers, and so she arranged for me to get an assessment and an intake, and so that started my journey into recovery.
Great. Is that where you want to stop?
Oh, so I guess I can, so what it's looked like since then, I guess. So I get introduced, I go into this treatment center, and in that center, uh, they made it clear that they did not have the answer for my problems. And they introduced me to 12-step fellowships. And when I left treatment and I connected with the 12-step fellowships, they introduced me to the program contained in the 12 steps, the action steps, the things I needed to do in order to create this change. And so since going to that treatment center, I haven't had to drink, I haven't had to use a drug, I haven't had to place a bet. And I truly believe I finally reached a point when I was willing to let my life be led by someone else. When I was 9 years old, as I mentioned, I was the child in the family who I'm the star. Everyone wants their children, grandchildren, nephews, everyone, they want them to be like me. And so I go through this early childhood stages with the help of the information I'm receiving from my family of origin and schools and administrators. I've placed myself above my peers. And I remember asking, not even asking, I remember knowing that my parents, my father, my grandparents, my uncles could not help me with my homework. They wouldn't be able to help me. I remember knowing that. And so at 9 years old, I told myself, if I have a problem in life, I have to figure it out on my own. And so that was the person that lived the rest of my life until I walked into the doors of the treatment center. And when I got to treatment, uh, again, that was the point where I was in a painful enough state, and I had no more ideas, no more, plans for how I would get myself out of it this time, that I was willing to just be led by what was given to me from the treatment staff, and then by the members of the 12-step fellowships, and then a sponsor. And I began to grow as a member of a healthier community, or a healthy community.
Hmm.
And I was willing to be guided and led, and I didn't have to recreate the wheel of abstinence or recovery. All I did, and all I continue to do for the most part, is what I'm told. And so I would say that's the thing that has allowed me to not have to, indulge in that lifestyle, since July of 2013. Is basically, I still am willing to be led and be guided. If I look back on the truths about my life, I'm still the smart kid, quote unquote. I'm still, that gift of being able to make sense of information, or process it, or maybe deliver it in a manner that just makes sense. Like, that gift hasn't left me. But at times I have to fight against that gift, because that gift was the thing that prevented me from accepting assistance, because I'm the 9-year-old who will figure life out on my own. And so today, I get to live a pretty decent life, as a result of the trauma that I experienced as a child, and all the trauma, that came after it, that put me in a place where I had no more outs. And when I reach that place where I have no, I can't I can't fix it. I can't solve my own problem. I was willing to accept some assistance from someone else, and life's been good since then. So I think that is enough for now.
Great. Well,
Thank
that covers a lot. And it's the whole time you were sharing, it's like there's this point that it's a reoccurring thing, it's a reoccurring understanding, something that we all have in common. We hit bottom. Each of us came to a point in our life where we went from thinking, I got this handled, to, wait a minute, I can't handle this and I need help. And that hitting bottom is crucial, because until you get to that point where you're willing to listen to outside sources, then you're really trapped in the behaviors and making excuses for it, and you're trapped in the obsession of addiction. And we can be addicted to literally anything. It doesn't have to be drugs or gambling. It can be a color. It can be a smell, a type of food. So breaking an addiction, it always comes down to getting to a point where you realize, I can't do this anymore. And so would you say that's accurate, that everybody here, you've all hit that I can't do this anymore point in your life? All right.
That was definitely the case for me.
Yeah, the only
And
time I was ever, go ahead.
even living a life substance free, I still have to hit those places for real change to take place many times in all the other areas of my life.
Yeah,
Right.
I like a rut. The deeper, the better. Don't care if I ever get out of it until it's painful. And pain will motivate me to make better choices, do better, find something else, whatever it is. Um, lately I'm really into self-care because this is what my life coach is telling me. You need to take care of you.
It's very
Um,
important.
which,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
is
Mhm.
something that I always put myself at the bottom of the list instead of making myself a priority. So I'm kind of learning to do that. But somebody said something in a meeting years and years ago that I heard that I didn't quite understand, but makes more sense now. He said, I kind of bounce around my bottom quite often. Uh, like a ping pong ball would hit the ground, but it bounces up and down and up and down.
Yeah.
And yeah, there are times of stress and anxiety when that is exactly what happens. I bounce around that bottom for a while until I figure the way out. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with that because, there's the bottom I hit with cocaine, there's the bottom I hit with Vicodin, there's the bottom I hit with alcohol. And it took several bottoms on each of those until I got to the point where I quit. But now I still have all my character defects, and with each of those, I have to hit a bottom. It's like I'm kind of an aggressive driver. I'm still working on that. I still can get sucked back into that wanting to cut people off and drive too fast behavior. And it's not always like that, but that's just for an example. That's just one of my character defects is I know that I am an aggressive driver and I haven't hit bottom yet. I'm bouncing on it, just like you said. So
I have a fantasy of having a car that has a speaker on the top and a microphone that I can use to talk to all of those idiot drivers around me. I understand you perfectly.
Yeah, it's very challenging, I know. I would love to say, while I was listening to Keithan, I feel overwhelmed because I feel, you know, there is this word. I would like to ask you one question. How do you, when I say something about abandonment and the drugs, how do you, how um how are they related? Because it keeps playing in my head, the abandonment and the drugs, and there is something in there. And if you are open, I would love to offer you maybe you are not yet familiar with rapid transformational therapy, because there is, in the process of RTT, there is this becoming a loving parent because you were abandoned by your parents, and upgrading the child. And that is really very effective. Marisa Peer used that to really to have a total transformation, to delete all the fear, all the resentment of those people whom you have expected to care for you, and then they abandoned you. And that is, I think, the fear of abandonment. And there is the drugs. And then there is this feeling that, like, okay, drug will not abandon you. It will give you pleasure, but it doesn't. But that's the fact. But it becomes it evolved into an identity in your personality that it's like dictating you. Like, okay, those people abandoned you, but the drugs will give you pleasure, and every time you need it, it's available as long as you can have it. There is someone, there is a source. So not like those people who leave you, that they are they might come back, but you already always have the fear that they will abandon you again. How is it? Does it make any sense?
Yeah, so I come again through, so through the 12 steps, right? I've been able to, and therapy and outside sources, but I have come to, even more recently, my recent therapist was asking, how was your childhood? And I'm like, it was good. Like I had these moments. Now I had a couple moments, and I was saying it was good because I didn't want for anything. I didn't need anything. I wasn't physically abused. So
Mhm.
me looking back
Yeah.
on what my life looked like, it was good. And she pointed out that certain things weren't normal. Another therapist in the past talked about how I was praised for my accomplishments, and there was never any emotional
Mm.
connections and whatnot. So the abandonment thing, I know through inventories that it is deeply rooted, and one
Mhm.
one way I
Yeah.
believe in which it shows is uh, my 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 circle is always very small. Uh,
Mhm.
if I don't let too many people too close, I don't have to worry about too many people walking away. And that's kind of how I understand it currently. But
Mhm.
it's like I have this fear of abandonment, and it keeps me away from forming a lot of relationships, or sometimes possibly even causes me to sabotage these relationships. Maybe it's like if I do it first, then I'm safe. Or so I'm aware that the abandonment, like, yeah, goes deep. Uh, and so yes, I'm open to whatever you offer that could possibly assist.
You can try, and you just feel it if it helps you. You can experience it. You can try if you're open to it. Not gonna charge you anything. I just want to introduce these tools because it's very effective. Help a lot of people to stop the addiction to when it comes to confidence issue. And I would love, that's why we are here, because we would love to help people in any way we can to share our own personal experiences. And well, you have to feel it, of course, because most importantly, you have to feel safe. That is most important, right, Jeff? We create a space where people feel safe. It, just follow your instinct. If you're interested, I would love to introduce to you the process, and we'll see what happens. And well, it includes recording. Jeff knows it already. It includes hypnotic recording, but we can talk about that in some other time because I think
No, yeah,
Jeff has something else to do. Well, let us just
yeah,
think about it. We are here.
okay,
Yeah. I'll
perfect.
get you guys
Okay, Jeff.
connected on Facebook because we're all on Facebook together. So, um, yeah, it's a good point. And there's this thing called the ACEs test. The ACEs test determines, which traumas you experienced in your childhood. And there's a direct connection between traumas and addiction. The more trauma you have, the more addictions you have. And so that's why I'm in numerous groups because I I experienced a lot of abandonment in a house full of people. There was 6 kids. My parents stayed together the whole time that they were living. They were always there, but they weren't there emotionally. They were there, you know, consumed by their own addictions the whole time. So I really didn't have, uh, unconditional love. And that's one of the things I think you were alluding to. When we get connected with the drugs and the alcohol, they seem to give us unconditional, uh, you know, I don't want to say love, but we get an unconditional effect from those things that every time I drink, I can get drunk. And every time I smoke pot, I could get high. And, it sort of becomes like our higher power during those times when we're in the substance use, it's becomes like a higher power for us. And one of the things I'd like to mention is, the 12 steps. I don't believe that they were invented. I believe that they were discovered. And it's just one way to describe the natural way of clearing your path and removing shame, guilt, and remorse from your life. And that's why there's so many variations of the 12 steps. There's, I think, 1,100 different 12-step based programs, and they all word the steps slightly different because it's not really the exact wording, it's the overall process. And this is part of the process, getting together and sharing honest confessions of the things that we've gone through is a big part of the healing. Selena, you have your own history with trauma and stuff. I mentioned before bottom. Would you agree that there came a time in your life where you like hit bottom and realized that you needed to get help for your traumas?
Oh, yes. Yes. Because we need to really surrender that there is something that we cannot do alone. Like, just reach out. The suicide, the number of suicides in the whole world these days is really rising. But if they have the courage, if they have the right people, they wouldn't do that, because the all the negative thoughts, just like, okay, I don't have a reason to live anymore, the world is so cruel. But if you can think of one reason why you don't want to do it, there is always one reason. And I can guarantee, even if I see someone on the edge of really doing it, and if I could just talk to that person, and if that person will take a second to listen, will not do it. Because it's really very important. It's the entity that develops in our subconscious, like, you have no reason to live, everything is, it's falling apart, and we come to that point in our lives that is like, okay, I'm done. Yeah. And no matter how strong we are, Lynda, you are very, very strong, and I really admire you. Even I feel, Keithan, you too, because you are here, and the fact that you're open to talk about your story. Everyone's story is so powerful. And because we learn from each other. And by doing this, we can really make a difference. And keep doing. And let's keep connecting.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this has been a great session. We're coming up on the hour. Any last minute thoughts, comments that Lynda or Keithan would like to share?
The only thing that came to mind while we were sharing was that I never met my parents' or my family's expectations because they were so high. So I never measured up. And now the only person who puts expectations on me now is me.
That's
my strength, right, Selena?
Yeah,
that's a very big trauma. That's something that you carry it your whole life.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, because we always have that feeling of not enough. Yeah, I am not enough syndrome. We all have that.
Yeah.
And that's why we wait, and we expect validation from other people, because we feel that we are not enough unconsciously most of the time. That's why it's really very important to hear compliments from other people in order to validate, oh, I matter. But we can affirm that we matter. I matter. Right?
Yes.
Amen.
Amen. That's the only
Amen.
confirmation that we need.
Yeah.
I matter. I am important. I am unique. I am beautiful. I am talented. I am enough.
There's a lady in our Wednesday night meeting that says, "You people are real." I think that's one of the best compliments I've ever heard.
Yeah.
You're real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Being authentic is important. So,
Yes.
as we started to mention early in the beginning, and I think it's okay to talk about this because I don't believe they're anonymous fellowships, but we met in a group called Never Alone Recovery, and I believe the organization that actually hosts the meetings is called Keys to Freedom. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so through those two organizations, we meet once a week, and it's Wednesdays, 8 o'clock. Is that right? 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So look it up on Facebook if you're looking for a meeting that's open to all people, all fellowships. It's it's a really pleasant group, and I feel honored to be a part of it. And you guys have been great, just tremendous guests. I really appreciate you being here. Keithan, did you want to insert anything at the end here?
Yeah, just briefly, I tell as many people as I can, someone needs your story, right? So I think we all have that moment at some stage in life where it's like, if I knew then what I know now, or if I could go back, and I personally believe like it's 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 exactly as it's supposed to be. All the tragedy or traumatic or not so lovely experiences I've had are the very things that push me to a place where I want to help others who may be going through those same things. And I would assume that that's going on with all of you also. And so again, my someone needs my story. I'm a person who hasn't relapsed. And that may not be appealing to a person who struggles and gets on the wagon, so to speak, and falls off and gets on and falls off. But they need a person, or they can relate and identify and find themselves in someone who has had that experience. And so someone needs your story. And lastly, connected to that, I was introduced to recovery through the 12-step approach, through the disease model of addiction. And because that's where I got my introduction, and I didn't know of any other modalities, like I was closed off to them. But in time, I was able to grow to a place of there are tons of ways to do it.
Right.
This is just the way that worked for me. And so, to be able to know that my story, someone needs my story. And if I'm open to just sharing my story and not trying to control someone else's, then I can continue to contribute to the recovery and just to the life giving powers that we all have. So, thank you again for allowing me to be here with you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you,
Great point.
Keithan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Right. Well, Selena, anything left you wanted to share? Otherwise, I think we're pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was it. It was great session again. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Lynda. Thank you, Keithan. And thank you for your wonderful story. Yes, indeed. Your story is important. Everything, every event in life is a code that we need to crack. We need to understand. And it's not happening to us. It's happening for us. There's always a purpose. Always. No matter how bad it seems, always. Because of my past traumas, I developed this belief that everything happens at the right time, at the right place, with the right people, with the right circumstances, for the right reason, even if nothing feels right at that given moment. That we have to understand that there is a right reason, even if it doesn't feel right at all. That's how I transform my belief system. Like my trauma, I recreate it, I redefine it, that it doesn't define who I am. That's the power that we have to, and then choose yourself all the time, love yourself, validate yourself, and we are good. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. And I will get this posted to YouTube and send you a link. You guys have a blessed afternoon. We'll see you again in the next meeting.
Thank you so
Sure.
much. Nice meeting you,
Thank
Selena. Thank
you.
you.
Nice meeting you, Lynda and Keithan. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
All right, bye.
Bye.